everybody, and welcome to Atheists on Air Beyond the Trailer Park, episode 197. We are getting closer and closer to the big 200. I have no clue what we're going to do yet. But anyways, so regretfully, Sammy couldn't be with us tonight. She had father-daughter things to do. So she is hopefully, if watching Weird Al Yankovic right now with Arno. But Miss Morgan, welcome. Nice
Hey.
to see you, because I wasn't planning on you being here.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the new start time, and I was just like, I have to move in like a few days. But yeah, I got everything mostly boxed up. It's pretty bare around here, but I'm just moving down the I'm staying in the same town and everything, just getting a house. So
that's cool.
yeah, I'm
Although
excited.
moving sucks, I know. Trust
God,
me.
it is the
Done
worst.
it, and I don't have much anymore. I'm like a minimalist, but damn, moving's a bitch. But so tonight, this was kind of pre-planned. We have Miss Deana Holmes with us. She's going to talk to us about her antics in a bit. Hello, Deana.
You can call me Dee, of course, like everybody else does.
I'm weird with names.
It's okay. Yeah, great to be here again.
Wonderful. And this was really kind of bizarre for me because I've never actually had another content creator ask this question of me. Can I join to talk about these CS clowns? So with us tonight is Matt Gilmore, who is also a returning guest. Hello, Matt.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody tonight?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
Excellent. So, how do we start this? As I don't want this to turn into a 2-hour plus Beth monologue. I sent these guys outline, basically script of what I would like to get out there. It ended up being 43 pages. I just added another 30 today. So, yeah, there's a lot of shit to cover. So, but before we can begin, most of you know that listen to or follow Beyond the Trailer Park or even follow myself personally, I have been tracking Steven Anderson for 10 years now. Basically, I started tracking him in about 2007-ish.
Did you catch him when he got arrested for refusing to answer questions at a border checkpoint and was consequently tased?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that, I will tell you, that is the one thing I will absolutely agree with him on. I absolutely hate being in the border area and having to answer a question about citizenship.
Yeah. I mean, that whole situation in his defense, and yes, I am kind of sort of defending him. I think what transpired was over the top. And I will give him kudos, and to any activist, you included, when you are convicted in what you are doing and are willing to put yourself in that type of a situation, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, I have to give you kudos for that. It's the same problem I ran into, and I'll probably mention this again, when West Barrow Baptist Church was still quite popular in the late 90s. It's the same thing they went through. As much as I hated their rhetoric, they stood for what they, at least in the spotlight, believed in, and they were not afraid to get arrested for it. So, you can't take away from that. So I've been following him probably since 2007, which is about 2 years after he started his church. And I have, I think, 53 posts about him. I've ripped apart many of his sermons. Only one I think I have actually published. But I've never attempted to put it all in one place. And it's a daunting task, which you guys will discover as we go through tonight. So that's part of the reason Deanna's here. That's part of the reason Matt's here. And of course, well, Morgan's always here. Well, usually always here. She has no friggin' choice. She's my fucking co-host.
Yeah, I'm always around.
But in a really odd way, this recent debacle concerning the Make America Straight Again conference that was held about 3 weeks ago seems to have given me to the impetus to rejoin this bullshit, because as some of you know, I've kind of backed off because of my health issues. So I can't promise, although Morgan can help in this aspect, that this new NIFB bullshit will not overtake Beyond a Trailer Park. It may. y'all know how obsessive I can be on specific topics. So
we could talk about the shenanigans around First Century Mark.
Well, we are actually working on an episode, but we're waiting for a few things to come down the pike. And to be honest, I've already started a second episode concerning this, but it gets more into the doctrine. So yeah, we'll be doing this again. So, but really, unless you've been living under a rock, as I said, Stephen Anderson, his cardinals and minions held what really could only be described as a despicable rally concerning on or around, I can't remember the specific date, the Pulse nightclub shooting anniversary. And they specifically did it in Orlando on that date. And they called it Make America Straight, as I mentioned. Such original people, really. I think between all of them, they have one brain cell. So we're going to try to be a bit informational tonight as to what is the IFB, who are the cardinals that I speak of. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with Anderson, but he has numerous gentlemen that are pastors or elders or whatever the fuck term they use, because they do have specific rules. You have to be married with 2 kids to be called pastor. Figure that one out. So we're going to go into who they are. I'm not going to, I'm not planning on dissecting every specific individual's doctrine. Basically, it all comes from Pope Anderson. And they do not stray when it is doctrinal issues. Now, as far as their generic sermons, who knows, but on issues such as abortion, homosexuality, transgender, repentance, the Trinity, that kind of stuff, you either follow Pope Anderson or he's going to kick your ass right out of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I have numerous videos of him doing that. And before I forget, if you want to follow along as far as the videos I cite, I posted my the show notes with most, because I've added some more since then, of the pertinent links. We're not going to use audio or video of them to avoid getting strikes on the channel, although we are not monetized, so I don't know if that would be as big of an issue. But there's almost 200 episodes on this channel, and I really do not want to lose all that because I do not have any of them backed up. I probably should start doing that. But before we get into that, Deanna, tell us what the fuck you're doing, woman.
Well, I can tell you first that I didn't do it yesterday. I had a migraine and my blood sugar was out of order and it was 105. Okay. Now I've been out there when it's been hotter, but I was in much better shape. So, I didn't do that.
Tell everybody what you mean by you've been out there.
Okay. So let me back up a bit. There is a church that is renting from another church in my neighborhood. And in Phoenix, in my neighborhood means it's less than 2 miles from my house. I mean, it's that close. So the church is called, and I can never, Apologia, and I've been pronouncing it Apologia, and they look at me funny. Okay.
Well, Apologia is actually the Greekish pronunciation.
Okay, so I feel much better about that now. You're making me feel better. But what their thing is there is they are very Calvinist. And specifically, they are London Baptist Confession of Faith, 1689. Yeah, that was a mouthful. They have pastors/elders that are installed. But this church's thing is that it is huge on the nut bar side of pro-life. Okay, and I know some people think that pro-lifers are nut bar to start out with, but these guys are seriously nut bar. In the sense that they go out to the Planned Parenthood in Tempe and use amplification and yell at women going in. And the Tempe Planned Parenthood is set up to where it's in a shopping center, but it's in a building that's set back from the road. So they have to actually stand on the sidewalk and people drive in. These guys and that's why they use amplification. I have not been out there, partly because I do not want to make the situation worse for the women going there. And partly because they do it. I work the same hours that the Planned Parenthood is open.
Gee, imagine that.
So, they also strongly believe and teach their children that women who have abortions should be executed. Period. End of story. They think the state should do this, but I have since, and I tolerated that for a while, but I have since dropped that whole routine. So what I've been doing, when I found out that because they used to be in Tempe, they were actually pretty close to the Planned Parenthood. They were renting from a vineyard church. They meet at 4 p.m. When I heard that, figured out that they had moved to this Presbyterian church near me, I was like, oh, hell no, not in my neighborhood. Okay. So I started protesting them back in April, before Easter, and have been trying to go out pretty much every Sunday. I missed 3 weeks when I was in Japan in May, and then I missed yesterday because I wasn't feeling well, but it was also 105 outside. But at the beginning, I would argue with them about abortion, and they would try their whole thing is they're very Calvinist in that they are so very, very black and white, law. And that frustrated me immensely. And Morgan, you'll appreciate this. They would ask me, and this is actually a good question. I'd like to see how you react to this. Morgan, if somebody said that to you, well, how do you think murder should be punished? What would your response be?
How do I think murder should be punished?
Yeah. Do you think murder should be punished?
Yes.
Well, okay. But see, my response was, it's complicated because, you know, we don't know the whole situation.
Well,
All
yeah,
right?
yeah. I thought you were saying like in general, like somebody's convicted of murder, should there be a,
Right.
penalty?
Should there be
Yeah.
a penalty? Okay. And, you know, but they were trying, you know, starting at this very beginning. And I was like, no, not going to be dragged down this path towards, you know, this whole thing. What they were trying to get me to do is say, yes, I think murderers should be punished. Yes, it should be, you know, capital type punishment.
Yeah, I don't believe in capital punishment.
Me neither. They also think that rapists should be executed as well. And I mean, my whole thing about capital punishment is that it's unfairly, it should be abolished because it's unfairly applied. The people who get executed tend to be poor and minority people of color. And the other thing is that there have been too many instances where people have had their sentences either reduced or simply, you know, they've gotten out completely because the prosecution in these cases either didn't give over information, were hiding information, or they, you know, that the people were wrongly convicted. So
well, I know Texas has executed 5 to now be determined innocent people.
Yeah, I know. And that, and see, that's, and that, my bar license is from Texas. So, I mean, Texas's capital punishment system was a cluster in 1986 when I started law school. And here we are in 2019, 33 years later, still a cluster. So,
well, I know when you were picketing, you and I were, in fact, I think you were actually picketing that day when you were PMing.
I was sitting in front of their church in my vehicle trying to get cooled down.
Yeah, and one of the responses that I've kind of hijacked, I believe I originally got it from an article that Hemant Mehta from Friendly Atheist posted, and basically it's a thought experiment, but I hold in one hand a petri dish with fertilized egg. I hold in my other hand an infant or a child of, we'll say, 2 years old, and I'm standing on a cliff. You have one option, only one. You cannot change the scenario in any way. Which one do you save? And basically, they can't, because if they say the child, they just have admitted that a real life, a flesh and blood life, is more important than the embryo.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that I don't know how that question would go over with these guys, because some of them actually believe that fertilized ova that don't implant are human lives just like yours, mine.
Well, that's the whole point. They have to choose between that life beginning at conception. These are fertilized eggs I hold, versus a life that is flesh and blood.
Yeah, but they're not. They won't do it.
Well, that's the thing. They can't.
Yeah,
right.
They can't. The guy that Hemant was referring to said he is access of numerous, and I don't know what numerous means in this case, pro-life advocates, and he's never, ever gotten an answer. Ever. Now, it could only be he talked to 3 people, but, you know, he's never been able to get an answer from anybody, because to say save the child, then your whole pro-life stance. And another contradiction is many, not all, many of your pro-life advocates in regards to abortion are pro-death penalty.
Yes, they are. These guys, they were very clear about the fact how they wanted to execute rapists. So I argued with them for a while. We did not have good times. I finally, you know, was it 2 weeks ago? They pissed me off. Okay. I ended up getting into a woman's face. I mean, literally. And this was hard for me because I'm an Aspie. Getting into somebody's face is really, really difficult. I knew I was standing, less than 6 inches from her nose. She was yelling at me, telling me I was wrong to be yelling at these kids. And I was telling her, these kids are telling me that women should be executed for having abortion. I'm sorry, I'll yell all I feel like. And seriously, I have talked mostly to Jeff Durbin. He's the pastor. His son Stellar, who is 11 years old, and he is absolutely brainwashed to think that women who have abortion should be executed. He also thinks the earth is 6,000 years old, and various other things. They all think I'm going to help, but I have since changed my way of dealing with this. My way of dealing with this is I'm not even going to talk to them about abortion anymore. Okay? Because I have decided that any organization that teaches children that women should be executed for having abortions is a cult, period, end of story. And so they're getting my, you are a cult. You need to figure that out, and you need to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to give you kudos. I mean, I don't have the means to picket. I probably would get myself arrested because the last protest I kinda sorta went to, it was literally right across the street from me. When Randall Terry, they had the pro-life rally in Buffalo. The place that they held them, the Connecticut Street Armory, literally was across the street from me. And they were picketing there to release, free the prisoners, so to speak. So I sat out there, got my, at the time, I don't remember who it was, probably Uriah Heep. Rock is Rock record, yes, record, vinyl. I could find, sat out on my porch and just watched. So that's the most physical activism I've been able to do. So I give you a lot of credit. And I was telling Deanna, we were chatting a bit earlier, and I said, I literally just like 2-3 hours ago put together that the Dr. James White, he's not really a doctor, who, as she said, is a Calvinist, is a person that I cite in some instances tonight, and there will be more on this in the future, but I didn't realize it was the same one from Appalachia Church. So
yes, he was recently installed. In fact, it was about a month ago as a elder/pastor. He used to be an elder/pastor at a church in Phoenix. Now he's driving over 30 miles from his house. I know where his house is because Maricopa County is really good about telling you where people live if they own a house. They can also find me. It's not that hard. So I know that he's driving this far, and James White is just mean. He's a mean guy.
Well, anybody, he kind of comes at it, and it's not just White, it's anybody that uses the love the sin, or hate the sin, love the sinner doctrine, basically is no better than those that are calling for their death, for deaths of LGBTQ. So, but I mentioned that a little bit later, so I'm not going to go into it now, but so yeah, kudos, Deanna. And
yeah, it's not something that I like doing. I really, but the fact is they go out all the time and harass the women at the Planned Parenthood, and they go over to Phoenix, and not all of those guys live in Phoenix. They go to open mic time at the city council. Every one of them gets up in 3 minutes of, you need to turn Phoenix into a what is it, a sanctuary city for babies.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if that means that they'll let undocumented women who are pregnant live there, since it's a sanctuary city for
no.
the unborn. Oh yeah, of
no,
course they
no, of
won't.
course
Yeah,
not.
I know that. Of course they won't. No, it's
Uh,
yeah, but still, it's yeah. If I was a council member, I'd call them on that and be like, "Oh, okay. We now welcome any woman who's pregnant and would like asylum."
yeah.
But
But
yeah, it's just they're the worst. And it's and when you said open mic night, I was almost scared you were gonna say like open mic night is in like karaoke or like at a bar. I was like, that would be so weird.
I have actually heard of that happening.
The thing is, I think they go to Phoenix as opposed to Mesa or Chandler because Phoenix's city council meetings are broadcast also on YouTube.
Yes.
So,
Trying to take advantage.
These guys are really into getting those recordings and putting them up and watch this child take the Phoenix City Council to task, and the city council's like shuffling papers and looking at their phones and going, "Go away."
Yeah, I know, and it's like you can't like sit there and yell at a kid either without looking like an asshole. So yeah, no, it's like, oh, watch them get owned, and it's like, no, you're just yelling at people and being awful.
Yeah. So, just to correct something I said concerning the date of the Pulse nightclub shooting, Matt informed us that it was June 12th. I can't read the end of the date because
2016.
Thank you. Half my internal chat is cut off because I have my screen enlarged too much. But as I said, I've been following Anderson for a long time. I didn't realize it was actually 2007-ish. I had in my notes I put like 2012. Yeah, I'm off by 5 years. And the first time I actually physically wrote about him, that I actually published, an original piece, was September 19, 2013. You all have heard me refer to it. It's no longer Fringe. And basically, it was in response to a horrid sermon and it was a sermon that he preached concerning Deborah and Barak. And you can tell where this is going to go just by the names, and his twisted theology. And his theology allowed him to use the narrative in Judges 4 as a means to slight President Obama. He initially, when I started working on this piece, I remember way back then as I was going to attack his name association, Barack Obama and Barack, but then as I listened to more and more of it, he then went on to call President Obama's mother a not so nice word that begins with W. By then I was incensed. And it was like, yeah, no. And as I mentioned on our last episode, it was one of the postings that kind of was my wake-up call. My first one, as I mentioned, was the David Silverman interview, and then this happened, and I was like, holy fuck. Prior to 2011, I was pretty laissez-faire. I was one of those, that's no big deal.
Yeah, it's Fringe, it's some crazy loons, it's not representative of everybody. But yeah, I do see where a lot of their theology is even creeping into, like, I would guess you'd say mainstream.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what I began to notice, that we now have elected officials who are thinking along the same line as Anderson. And that's really scary. I mean, we all know the case of Fritz, the guy in Tennessee, the former sheriff deputy, who's also a NIFB preacher. We'll get more into him a little bit later. But when I was researching Dominionist theology, the whole shebang, not just Sarah Palin, I was following some pretty nutty preacher men and women, which Anderson is against. Anderson obviously being one of them. And as you said, Morgan, the repeated phrase was, "Oh, that's just fringe," and I was getting that from fellow atheists, not just.
Oh yeah, I hear that. I hear that constantly. That, I mean, still I'm hearing that, oh, that's fringe. And also what's interesting is Steven Anderson's wife owns a clothing company.
Yeah. And she is
they sell modest bathing suits, which
Yeah.
I love how they would flip the fuck out if it was like a burkini or if it was a Muslim, swimsuit. But
Yeah, she is
fine.
actively involved in this entire shebang, although she knows, well, for lack of a better word, knows when to shut up. But she's no innocent little puffball. But my whole philosophy when it comes to that, and it's something I will mention in a little bit, is the families are off limits. Suzanne is an exception because she is actively involved in this, but we'll hit that in a bit. And that's what kind of, was the impetus for today. Put the last 10 years or so of stuff I've been writing about, stuff I've been listening to, not willfully, but I had to. And it's hard to believe that something that I wrote, 6 years ago concerning Anderson is even more relevant today. And what I said was Anderson is more concerned with making racist, bigoted, and misogynist remarks than he is teaching the actualities of the Bible. Now, he does have some good points. I'm not, as far as his preaching, and I'm looking at this from a ministerial perspective. That's what I went to school for. I still think that whole shit's bunk anyways, but he's not teaching, in my opinion, the actualities about Bible. He's not mentoring his flock. He's pandering to sheeples. And if you've ever this is something I wrote back then, so I'm quoting myself. If you've ever listened to any of his sermons, the laughter and the clapping from his congregation is fucking disgusting.
Oh, I listened to one of his sermons once, and he told women not to amen.
Women are not, and this is not something we're really going to hit today, but I'm actually working on a second or third piece. I'm all over lately, but they're not allowed to speak in church. Women are not allowed to lead. Your typical misogyny. They can't even say amen, as Dee just noted. Like if you go to a holy roller type church, oh, amen, this. No, that's not allowed. In fact, I'm trying to remember how I put it, but yeah, he's very misogynist in his view.
Yeah,
he's
say it mildly. Yeah,
he's terrible as far as that goes. But a lot of it is scriptural, so that's why there's one of the issues I have in the Bible. You can support this shit biblically.
Yeah, well, my take is, you can kind of support anything with the Bible.
Well, that's the thing, and the example I always use is that divination, 253 verses for, 254 verses against. So which is against it? So which is it? The Bible's not clear. Same thing. The piece I'm working about now. Basically boils down to it's on repentance, but it boils down to faith versus works. Which is it? Because Paul says one thing, James says another. Which one is it?
Yeah, and then also what we've discussed many times is Jesus's teachings being diametrically opposed to Paul's.
Yes. And there is a reason for that, and we'll touch on it a little bit, but it didn't flesh out the way I wanted, but it's Pollyanity versus Christianity. So, I mean, as I said, this topic as a whole is like mind-boggling. And, yeah. But as I said in the beginning, it's been strongly suggested to us not to use any actual audio or video clips of the soon to be mentioned individuals. Don't want to strike, and I was kind of looking for a way around it. I was thinking I'm putting it on my personal channel. Same thing applies. I don't want to get a strike, even though I haven't been that active lately. So what I did, if you didn't hear me in the beginning, if you go to Havoc and Chaos, which is my blog, I have posted the show notes, even though we haven't done the whole show yet, of any pertinent clips. So have at it. Everything's there. And if you go looking for the originals, it's I've been informed that most of the NIFB videos from Anderson and his Cardinals, they have either been removed by them, set to private, or they were taken down by YouTube, although I've heard through the grapevine today that some of those videos are reappearing. Most of these churches have individual websites that are outside the purview of Facebook and YouTube. A lot of it is probably still there. I didn't really go hunting because it was getting to be stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Getting a little unwieldy, yeah. So as I said, we're not monetized. I'm not overly concerned, but I don't want to run that risk of having everything that we've done in the last 4.5, 5 years totally wiped out because I have no backups. So we would literally be starting from scratch. So, and as I said, if I or any of the panel say anything that you feel is not a accurate representation of what we say, pop me a line. I will correct it, in the next show. So that's our quandary. So we will be quoting, we will be paraphrasing, we will be coaching our terms, but my hope is not to misrepresent their position. I'm not trying to misrepresent their position, but this is how we understand it.
Yes.
I have no reason to. I don't think anybody on our panel has a reason to. Their hate is very well documented. And I'm sorry, the Pulse rally, the Make America Straight Again rally, proves my point that they, are proud of what they preach and teach. So basically, if since you all have a copy of the notes, we can alternate so it's not just me talking.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got my notes pulled up. But
basically,
but yeah, I guess where do you want to really, kind of, because I know we've talked about Steve Anderson generally, but
yeah, go down. Well, hit Steve Anderson will be the first one, so I'll do the little blurb above that, and then if you want to take it away, Morgan, I'll give my voice a rest too. To start with, we're gonna meet some of the players. I call them Cardinals, and yes, the relationship between fellow ministers and Stephen Anderson is a Pope Cardinal type relationship. Surus and Atheist Rationale have put out a wonderful video called the NIFB Know Who They Are and What They Do. Link is in the show notes, and basically I'm borrowing from them plus my own information. So if you want to hit Steve Anderson, Morgan, go for it.
yeah. All right, so I guess what we say is Steve Anderson, of course, being the main player, the Pope, if you will, which he would love that description. He would hate that description, so I kind of love it. But yeah, so he's been in the news for a while, as Dee mentioned. He hit the news a little bit prior because he was stopped at a border patrol in that region by the border, and then he was tased. He was refusing to answer questions or comply, which we hit. But so yeah, he's made a lot of just horrible, just I mean, the central thing about Steven Anderson is just the mean-spiritedness
Mm-hmm.
of him. So for example, he was rejoicing after the Pulse shooting.
Well, right,
Um,
and when God, what is his name? Uh, keep talking. I've got to look who this is.
Yeah, but he basically said that, yeah, I believe that, Christians should kill LGBTQ people. And then he did backtrack. Well, he doubled down, but also kind of backtracked it at the same time, saying, oh, well, I think the government should be doing it. But thing is, government, he believes, should be made up of Christians that follow specifically his doctrine. So he did double down on that. And I did look into this because, Beth, I believe you asked me if he had said the same thing about adultery.
Yeah.
And he did, but how he justifies his stance about this kind of like execute, women who have abortions, LGBTQ people and adulterers or anybody basically that he doesn't like. Um, he justifies it by he's one of those people, and you hear this with people who support the death penalty, with the whole like, oh well, it'll decrease the amount of this whatever behavior you're trying to deter, which it's been proven over and over it doesn't. So I found a blog of his from 2016 where he said, oh yeah, I do think the government should be executing adulterers, but he's like, don't worry about your aunt who cheated on her husband 30 years ago, because had it been in place then 30 years ago, the culture would have been different and she never would have committed adultery. And so therefore, yeah, it'd be like going forward, like it's not a backwards looking kind of thing. I'm forgetting the term off the top of my head.
And I'm jumping way ahead, actually, to another episode, but it was something I learned or had solidified today, is that his whole notion of the doctrine of repentance is faith on Jesus alone. In other words, he does not believe you have to repent of past sins. So send me that blog post, because that'll explain that little mess. But
yeah, so he's but he was basically saying the government should kill gay people, government should kill adulterers. And and you can say, oh well, this is old sermons, it's from 2017, but he hasn't ever backtracked it.
Nope.
And he's actually doubled down on it.
Yep.
And he knows enough to sort of, I guess, keep himself out of legal trouble or try to keep himself off of watch lists by saying things like, oh well, of course I would never advocate my followers to act on any of that, wink. Which one of his followers did show up to it was somebody that showed up with an AR-15 to I think where was he going?
He was President Obama was speaking in
that's what it was.
In
Arizona, in Phoenix, and this gentleman actually showed up with an AR-15 to execute President Obama, and it was found out after the fact or in the course of the investigation that the day prior, not only listening to Alex Jones, but he also had heard Anderson's sermon, and he's had numerous concerning President Obama, basically saying to do what he was there to do.
Yeah. And of course, he walks it back by saying, oh, well, I wasn't saying any of my followers should, do that now, wink, and it's like everybody in the congregation, it's a dog whistle essentially, because everybody in the congregation knows what he means and knows what he's calling for, but it's enough to, I guess, sort of keep him
Well, he was investigated by the Secret Service.
Yeah, as he should have been.
And he has a blog post that I put in the notes, and I kind of shortened it, but this is just from the first 2 paragraphs. He goes, "There has been a lot of buzz on the internet lately claiming that I have preached that people should kill all the gays by Christmas." This was, 2 years ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has listened to any of my preaching would know that this is not true. First of all, I don't ever use the word gay, and that's true. He does not. He uses every other word in the book, but that one. Because he is, in fact, in a sermon I was listening to today, he says gay means happy. So that's why he does not use it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we won't go
He's
there.
one of those.
Yeah, but there's an entire backstory to that, but it's totally not irrelevant, but it's a go for hole, so we'll avoid. So that should be the first clue that this quote did not come from me. Second of all, I have consistently preached against violence and vigilantism, which, if you take him without the winks, is kind of sort of true. But as you noted, he wants the government to do it, but the government should be Christian, so
yeah, it's the same thing.
It's like, yeah, he's not a dominionist, just to make clear. Well, not a dominionist as I speak about. He is a dominionist, but not in the same vein, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I would consider him a dominionist from the doctrine that was that an organization tried to imprint on me, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, he's a dominionist, but he is not part of the current theocratic movement.
Yeah.
That's the clarification I was looking for. But he goes on. Second of all, I have consistently preached against violence, vigilantism, or taking the law into one's own hand. I have never preached that we as Christians, false, citizens should physically harm anyone, because the Bible makes it clear that we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but that our battle is spiritual in nature. And if I remember, that's Ephesians. Third of all, the comments that I actually made, not the twisted version reported by liberal websites, were made over 3 years ago. So I think this blog post was from 2017. Oh, no, wait. Were made over 3 years ago. The comments were made in November of 2014. I still stand by every word I said and would readily preach the same sermon again.
But then he says, like, our battle's a spiritual battle, but then he's calling for physical executions.
Yeah. Yeah, he plays a very dangerous game of semantics, and he's very good at it. And why
it's not good arguments, but it's good at, like, doing...
Right.
He's good at doing those, devil's advocate and all that.
Yeah, he has been investigated. I do know that. And I do know that there are many individuals, both theist and atheist, and some pagan, and some Muslims, calling for, not just him, but the whole cadre of NIFB to be taken down off of YouTube. But that's a whole nother ballgame. Anything more you wanted to add, Morgan?
Man, I mean, with this guy, it's like, I'm sure, Matt, you've been covering Steven Anderson for a while. But, yeah, just...
Yeah, we've covered him a couple of times in our show.
Yeah, just, he's one of those that you always hear pop up, whether it's on, Cogdis, anything like that.
Let me give you an idea. I'm only going back a year at the most, some instances longer, as to these people don't have much content. I have 6,500 links to secular radio, well, internet radio, that has discussed him in one way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Well,
That's just Steven Anderson. That's not the whole NIFBC, just on him. I'm not going to mention how many news articles or blog posts there are, but let's just say it's over 10K.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, for sure. Yeah, and also he and his church have been labeled as a hate group by the SPLC. I mean, every sermon is just, it sounds like it could be from any number of hate groups. Yeah, again, it's awful. And he always does, he's very much fire and brimstone, the whole everybody's going to hell. It's, atheists and humanists and progressives and socialists are demons and y'all are all going to hell. And
Anybody
yeah.
that does not believe the exact same way as he do, and if you're a Christian, I'm sorry, D, you're not saved.
oh, I know that. Oh, that's something that I get told every week over at Apologia, is that I am not saved. I get that told that every day on Twitter.
Yeah.
So it's like I just tell myself, there are a billion different ways to look at this. You don't have the right way to look at it. Neither do I. Have a nice day. And I'm not interested in what you're selling.
Going back.
I don't blame you, D.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the point that Morgan made about the government's job to carry out, a comment on one, I don't even remember what it was. It might have been a video. I'm pretty sure it was a video because I really haven't read much, just because, I value my eyes. But he was asked, specifically Anderson was asked, where in the Bible does it say it's the government's job to carry out executions? Anderson's response was, not what did Christ say? And this goes to the Paulianity versus Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
But what Paul said. He quotes Romans 13. 1 through 4, and I'm sorry, this is in King James Version because that's what they use, so that's how I fight back. I use whatever version my adversary is using, and trust me, it's not easy to read out loud. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but God. The powers that be are ordained by God. Skip down to verse 4. For he is the minister of God to thee for good, speaking of the government. But if thou do that which is evil, and I have to read this like this because these words are brutal. Be afraid, for he breathes not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, the government, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Now, the first problem that jumps out is the word execute. That's not what that means, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, it's being used as not execute as in behead you. It's being execute as in you're doing something. Because when I execute documents at work, which I do quite a bit, I don't kill anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Are you sure, Morgan?
And another thing is, when push comes to shove, Romans 13 pretty much goes out the window. John Wesley, you know who John Wesley was. He tussled with American Methodists over that very thing in the rebellion. He thought American Methodists should be supporting king and country, and American Methodists were like, too bad, so sad. Nope.
Yeah. As it's interesting because I have seen a lot of pushback, not just from the secular community, which would be blatantly obvious, but I have to admit, and I was going to save this for later, but it fits in here. I have seen quite a bit of pushback from the theist community. And I say theist because it's not just other Christians, but I have seen posting a few videos by Muslims. I've seen videos by pagans. I've seen videos by other Christians. So it's not just us. It's, well, I don't agree with a lot of these other people's doctrines, obviously, like not at all. I can see where they're getting it and how they're coming to this thinking, but they all have problems when you break it down. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, not to go deep dive and Morgan throw your 2 cents in here, but the U.S. government is secular by nature. Okay, it claims no authority from of power via God. Never has, never will. It claims its power through the people. Not to steal from the right, we the people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that does hold true in this case. And as Morgan said, he used the same 4 verses for his all adulterers should be put to death. Am I correct in that assessment as far as, secular government?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, completely. And you can see now where, as we've discussed in previous episodes plenty of times, how, theocrats are gaining footholds and trying to reinvent, history, and they're trying to basically recon and be like, oh no, America was always a Christian nation, which,
David Barton's crawled out of the woodwork in the last.
Yeah, the David Bartons, and then you see the theocrats trying to get foothold through Project Blitz, as we discussed
right.
previous episodes. But yeah, it's supposed to be a secular government.
Right. So I'm not going to go too deep into this, but Bruce Gerenser, who follows a lot of this stuff, he had a article in 2015. It was pre-INFB, but just to clarify, pre that we actually knew about the NIFB, because really when Anderson started his church, he was using New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist. So NIFB really is not new, but it's new because now it's getting press. But he wrote an article in 2015, and the strongest point he made was that they may not play the nice game like Downtown First Baptist Church, but their beliefs are similar. As I have stated many times before, strip the facade from people like Fred Phelps, Stephen Anderson, Bob Gray, Jack Hyles. I'm trying to skip through here. Peter Ruckman, another name that I've mentioned years ago. All these so-called men of God, MacArthur, Moeller, Robertson, Dobson, Franklin Graham, even Billy, his dad.
Yeah, your usual suspects. Oh, but I did want to mention this aside. So Hobo Snail in the chat, and I do remember seeing something about this. Now, I had no idea it was this extensive, but I did know that he was denied entry into the United Kingdom. Anderson was. But as of early May 2019, apparently he's banned from from many European Union countries, and most recently Ireland banned him on the 12th of May.
Botswana, Ireland, UK.
He's banned from the entire it's not just the European Union, it's a larger grouping.
Yeah, it's the non-Schengen.
It's the Schengen group. Yes,
and also all non-Schengen European Union states apparently have now banned him as well.
Yeah, he's banned from everywhere.
So he's
in the European Union, except here.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we could ban him here, but
yeah,
I don't think that'll happen though.
No.
But yeah, Gerstner goes on that while they may disagree on orthopraxy, eschatology, soteriology, baptism, all the doctrinal bullshit, which we won't get into, the beliefs that bind them are far more than the beliefs that separate them. So they are all bad. even those that are denouncing him, there is problems within their doctrines. Obviously, as an atheist, I reject any form of religion. So it's not just an atheist thing. I know for a fact with Dee, I mean, she would not be out picketing Appalachia Church if she did not agree with what they're teaching. I know numerous other people that are Christian that picket other churches for various reasons. So, yeah. Who wants to take Tommy McMurtry, the pumpkin boy?
Oh my God.
Okay, you just volunteered, Dee.
Okay, hold on a second.
For those that don't know, and we'll kind of sort of hit it, Tommy McMurtry got into a back and forth with Mr. Atheist, who is, from my understanding, is quite popular. And I will hit this later, but needless to say, he called Mr. Atheist a big fruit. And so I'm really starting to like
big fruit.
This Mr. Atheist dude. I mean, I've never listened to him before the last 3 weeks, so he's kind of new to me. Well, he is new to me, obviously. And so the biggest fruit is a pumpkin. So that's why if you go on Twitter or elsewhere and you see pumpkins, that's why. There's a whole backstory to it. All the links are, I believe, in the show notes, but they might be elsewhere. So I will tell about that at the end. But yeah, go ahead. Did I give you enough time, Dee?
Yeah, I found him, and okay, so Pumpkin Boy, he is one of the cardinals of the NIFB, and I'm not exactly sure when he got in. He is the pastor of the Liberty Baptist Church in Rock Falls, Illinois.
Not to be confused with Liberty Baptist Bible College of the Falwell clan. Totally
that is
separate.
correct. It's a totally different deal. Do I really have to talk about Brian Denlinger? He's such a goofball.
Okay. I'll take it from then you can finish. Basically, what I found, I like using other Christian apologists or other Christian religion when it comes to criticizing Christianity. Now, the gentleman I chose for 2 reasons. One, I liked his take on McMurtry, but in researching, I discovered that Denlinger is a total nutball. Okay, he's into pretty much any conspiracy theory you can think of, but he is very anti-Catholic. But
well, he's a conspiracy theorist. Of course he's anti-Catholic.
Yeah, so he's kind of a nutball, but he gets into a point that I hadn't seen up to that point, and I had already gone through I don't know how many videos. Criticizing Anderson. I mean, he's got a whole write-up on Rational Wiki, and he thinks Rational Wiki is of the devil and liberal and all this other crap. Love or hate Rational Wiki. They have a lot written about him, so it's kind of comical. But yeah.
Yeah.
What it is that the biggest issue with Denlinger from the Christian standpoint is that he denies the Trinity. He does have biblical justification, but guess what? Like any other issue of doctrine, you can support it either way. I was a Trinitarian for years. I then became not a Trinitarian. So yeah, it's a very heretical stance to take. So is that enough not to cover?
Yeah, that's enough. The one thing is, I knew nothing about Tommy McMurtry until I saw all this hoorah about pumpkins. Okay, and and he didn't bother to save his name. So the first thing, if you were to search on Tommy McMurtry, the first website you're going to get is tommymcmurtry.com, where you will get a lot of pictures that, if you hover your cursor over them, will say nothing to do with Liberty Baptist Church or Tommy McMurtry. And some of them are, a little risque. So, but that's all because of, he called Mr. Atheist the biggest fruit. And another thing about McMurtry is that he claims that most homosexuals were molested as children, and that is why they are homosexual. And, that's simply not true. I was sexually assaulted as a 9-year-old. And as far as I can tell, I'm, even though I'm not much into sex, definitely heterosexual.
Well, I'm bisexual. So once again, bisexual erasure.
Yeah. Well,
just like, what does he think? Like, I was just like, he'd probably be like, well, you're just a heathen. So,
well, the thing is with McMurtry is he does not clarify whether, at least up to this point, he may in other sermons that I have not listened to or watched, he just says they were molested. He doesn't say whether they were molested by, male on male
men or
women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because usually that's the argument I hear is that, it's, yeah.
If that's the case, if it's female on female, then why the fuck am I a lesbian? You would think, okay, if it was male female, that I would be totally off men, and I think that's where he was going, that if it was a male that raped a female, the female would then become a lesbian. And I think that's where he's going with this, but
I see what he's saying, but it's like, no.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was raped at 13 by another female. So why the fuck, if that is what he is thinking, why?
Okay, I can't look at these pumpkins anymore. This is too much. Anyway, he uses othering techniques. He separates his congregation from pretty much everybody else outside the group. Although he has specific hatred for Catholics, pedophiles, and homosexuals, who he lumps in all together. So
that's a group.
Isn't that just super? He also, since he's one of the cardinals of Anderson's NIFB, of course he's going to go with Anderson's "Let's Kill the Homos." Excuse my language; I don't like using that language. Anyway, there was a channel called "Let God Burn Them Quickly." I don't know if it disappeared or not, but
it got taken down.
I know I reported it.
So did I.
That is a wild name for a YouTube channel. You might as well have been like, "Hey, YouTube, ban me."
Yeah.
Anyway, he while they were still operating, they uploaded a video where Tommy McMurtry was recorded as saying, as he hoped for protesters and violence at the Make America Straight Again conference, and they were going to hide behind the stand your ground law in Florida if there was any
yeah, of course they would, because I mean that law's purpose is to allow fucking awful people to just murder people that they hate. Apparently, that's what.
Yeah, and if went on in this video to say that since they can fight back, he wants people to become violent so that he can legally, quote, protect, unquote, himself against people he perceives to be an easy win. He might be surprised about that.
Yeah, especially if he's like plotting this beforehand. That sounds very premeditated to me.
Well, and the thing is that the NIFB is known for brandishing weapons and stalking their critics. I've told people this. The Anderson's church is a mile from my office at work. Okay, and I know exactly where it's at. I would never picket it because all those people pack heat. I just would not take. I mean, and I can't trust them.
Mm-hmm. Well, so. I mean, now I don't have any verified proof, but allegedly Anderson's wife does too. So yeah.
Yes,
I mean, it's like
I've heard the same thing.
You know, it's like, okay, fine. And it's not just Anderson's church, although he seems to be the more pack the heat type, but McMurtry, all of them, they all basically pack heat. McMurtry, he's not in Florida, but there is a church in Florida, which we will hit. That's what they're hiding behind. And Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a recent Supreme Court decision, I don't remember which state, that said you can no longer use the gay panic defense?
There's been several states that have struck that down. I know New York has, I believe. I want to say Pennsylvania or no, not Pennsylvania. It was one of the northeastern ones.
Yeah. So,
but I think there's been a couple of states that have stricken that down.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I used to jokingly say, you know, I'm afraid to sometimes leave my house. This was years ago when I first moved here, because anybody could take a pot shot at me and there would be nothing from a legal standpoint because they accepted the gay panic defense. I mean, I have been, I don't want to really say assaulted because that carries connotations of something majorly serious, but I have been harassed just walking down the street because pretty much everybody in this fucking town knows that I am gay. And only a few people know that I'm an atheist, but oh my fucking god, if they heard that, this town would have shits. Literally. You'd think they'd be drinking jelly juice. Yeah. So.
All right.
Any more?
No, that's pretty much it. So somebody can take Bruce Mejia of Faithful Word Baptist Church in LA.
Matt, you up for it? Or do you want to save what you have to say for Fritz?
Yeah, I want to say what I have to say for Fritz.
Okay, I'll hit Mejia or Meja.
It's Mejia. It's Mejia. Mexican.
Okay. I wasn't, well, there's two ways you could pronounce it even in the Spanish. So yeah, he's out of Faithful Word Baptist Church. How original. But in Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles.
And basically, like all the rest, his claim to fame is that, yes, I should die. I should be put to death. And basically what he said is, we believe they should be put to death. They should die, and I will never grieve over a sodomite that is killed or that is put to death for any other way they die. I.e., he supports ISIS for throwing gays off the roof. And yes, he does. He has actually stated that, as has Anderson, I believe, and some of the others. Not in so many words, but it's blatantly obvious. He goes, I will never grieve for that. In fact, I will rejoice over that. And then I took this from this quote from Friendly Atheist, and he goes, make a clip out of that and put that in the news. Well, Hammett did, and now I am, and there's probably others that have as well. But his biggest thing is the reprobate doctrine. And I'm just going to give a rough overview because we're hopefully going to come back to it. And basically, it's basically which they teach that sodomites, and that's their preferred term, cannot be saved. And it's, he actually, when he preaches about, that's a loving doctrine. Yes, it is. It's a loving doctrine. So
You're gonna burn in hell forever. How loving.
yeah. So to put this in a nutshell, and this is really kind of not a nutshell, but it's as close to one as I could come. Basically, reprobate doctrine teaches that there is a line an unbeliever can cross where God no longer deals with that person's heart about getting saved.
You know what's funny is French camp. They did a bit of that as well. With the like, there comes a point when God stops.
Okay, did they put the line at if you are a homosexual?
They never specified.
And that is the key right there. And this
Yeah.
is why what Anderson et al. Teach, according to other Christians, not according to me, may be an error because the doctrine originally comes from a gentleman by the name of Jack Hyles, and that's not what he teaches. Again, we're going to hit reprobate again in this. So, Meha, and I'll define a reprobate as someone incapable of believing the gospel. In other words, an unbeliever's heart can become so hardened, and keep some of these words I'm stressing in mind, that the truth is no longer effective because God has willingly hardened their heart because He, God, hates them. Generally, and I've seen very different variations coming from all of them, but in a nutshell, it comes from Mark 3:28 through 30. Verily I say unto you, all sins shall be forgiven unto the sons of men, and blasphemies wherewith soever they shall blaspheme. But he that shall blaspheme against the Holy Ghost hath never forgiveness, but is in danger of eternal damnation. But because they said he, i.e. Christ, hath an unclean spirit. Now, where other Christians have problems with this is that two verses specifically state that it's a person who blasphemes the Holy Spirit, okay, is in danger. Doesn't say for sure going to hell. It says in danger of eternal damnation. Okay, so the Bible does not say that they are damned and beyond hope, as Anderson's version of the reprobate doctrine claims.
Yeah, so what FCA would have said was that it means that if you're like LGBTQ, that's a sign, basically, that you could be past that point.
That's actually, I won't say proper teaching, but from my understanding, and I'm pulling a lot of this out of memory, as I also did use other King James only ministries as source. It's not the reason they're in danger of eternal damnation is because they said that Jesus hath an unclean spirit. They're accusing Christ of being the devil. Basically, they're rejecting the truth of the gospel. And
yeah, and it's kind of, to me, it's a little bit related to that predestination.
Yes, it gets
a
into
little bit, but that's a whole new thing.
Yeah, then this is the problem with ripping their doctrine apart because you got tangents flying everywhere. But really, the only unpardonable sin is rejecting Christ as one's Savior. And since the Holy Spirit, I'm slipping right back into my old ways. Since the Holy Spirit first has to convict a man and deal with his heart to be saved, according to some, not everybody believes this. If you speak evil of him, you have fallen from grace, throwing away the only hope of being saved, according to some. And this is where where the notion from Jack Hyles comes in, because this is not what he fucking teaches. How do I know that? Guess who spoke at my fucking college?
Oh, don't tell me Jack Hyles.
Yes. Oh, trust me, I've heard some doozies in my life. But when I went to college back in the day, I think he was a visiting guest lecturer, if I remember correctly. He spoke not specifically on the reprobate doctrine, but in my quest, I did follow some of his teaching. Obviously, this was pre-internet, so what's really fucking bizarre about this whole thing with it not being what he teaches is that Pastor Anderson, Stephen Anderson, has on his YouTube channel a clip titled Jack Hyles Explains Reprobate Doctrine. Now, if you listen to this clip, Hyles simply teaches that there is a line which an unsafe person has to cross. And once they cross that line, rejecting the gospel, they cannot be saved. He has nothing in there, nothing about homosexuality or that homosexuals are of the reprobate mind. He doesn't put any qualifications on that other than rejecting the gospel. I mean, this is what is so bizarre. Anderson has a clip of him stating that, and he ignores it and puts his own interpretation in there of homosexuals are of reprobate mind. It's bullshit. You know, and a clip I did come across, and another clip that I came across, which really kind of drives this point home. It's this is an intriguing video concerning part of a sermon of Anderson comparing Charles Spurgeon to his hero, Jack Hyles. If this video is accurate, and yes, it's in the show, I think it's in the show notes. I'll make sure it is. Someone needs to take the blinders of hate off of Anderson et al. Because, you know, he's blasting Spurgeon, who basically is preaching the same thing or similar to Hyles. It's just, you know, he holds up Hyles to all this, you know, hero worship, and he's no better than the rest of them. Although I will say he never says homosexuals are the reprobates. You know, it's not a line that, according to the Bible, God sets. Or according to Hyles, God does not set. And he plainly says in the first clip that he doesn't know what that point is, nor who crosses it. Whereas Anderson and his cadre have set a specific point, and that's ostracizing all homosexuals. Will broaden that anybody within the LGBTQ community and their allies. Because if you support LGBTQ, you are no better than a member. So, I'm sorry, D, you're a reprobate.
I knew that already.
Yeah. And it gets into some really bizarre apologetic mumbo jumbo that I was going to do, but it's like, oh God, I'm already confused. But this whole thing reminds me a lot of Gordon Klingenschmidt back in 2013. And he basically, not specifically reprobate doctrine, but this reprobate doctrine is very Pollyanny. Most of the scripture references that I was able to find, because while Anderson is very good at quoting the Bible, he does not always give the verses. So I have to do a keyword search through my software and hope I find it. But back in 2013, Gordon Klingenschmidt, in his usual bullshit, if I remember, if I'm not confusing him with Swanson, basically said similar about gays. And what I wrote in response directly to him, he probably was not very happy. What Paul focused on is showing that idolatry, because they use the Romans 1 clobber passages, is wrong and the people should worship God. Paul is describing idol worship, plain and simple, not lesbian women and not gay men. It's a cultural, historical, and religious context of first century Rome, which Anderson totally ignores. Paul is describing women and men who use sex to worship fertility goddesses like Cybele. And if you actually go to Rome, to the Palatine Hill, dig under it, guess what you're going to find? A temple to Cybele. So yeah, it gets so twisted that you just want to, pull your hair out. But a lot of the Christian critics that I read or listened to, and in some cases read, they believe the reprobate doctrine is backwards, or the people that follow this doctrine from NIFB have it backwards. They say that because of a gross sin like homosexuality, God gives up on people ever getting saved, whereas that's what Anderson says, whereas his critics are saying the Bible teaches that because unbelievers reject the gospel, God then gives them up to their filthy sins, which are in Romans 1. Romans 1 is not saying that vile sinners can never be saved. Anybody can still be saved. And I am working on an episode just dealing specifically with the reprobate doctrine, but that's it in a nutshell. If that even made any sense to anybody but me. It's crazy. So from my perspective as an atheist, if I look at all the criticisms of Anderson et al., he's not or does not appear to be biblically sound. Based on my past history within the church and with college, he does not appear to me personally as biblically sound. But again, you can support this reprobate doctrine biblically. My biggest thing with religion, specifically Christianity, anything can be supported. I list a couple videos that if you want to see how a Calvinist specifically responds to this, it's in the show notes. So if you're bored and really want to have your mind warped, go listen to it. And just to throw this in as a little shits and giggle, in Romans 1:25, one of Anderson's own verses, it says, "Who changed the truth of God into a lie?" Think on that for a minute. But yeah, it's a modern heresy. It's mumbo jumbo doctrine that, as Hiles teaches it, okay, still mumbo jumbo. As Anderson teaches it, it's horrid. It's just beyond disgusting. And what's really kind of weird is that if you know anything about Calvinism, Anderson is very anti-Calvinist.
Haven't you preached some anti-Calvin sermons?
He's got at least 3 that I have not downloaded yet. They're in queue. But yeah, he is very, very, I can't stress, very anti-Calvinist. His whole reprobate doctrine, and this is something I picked up, and you can thank Deb for that. He's preaching fucking limited atonement. That's a Calvinist doctrine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So.
It's like, dude, you are preaching limited atonement. When you put that line there, that's limited atonement. You are saying only those that, aren't gay. And while I find it baffling, I know many gay Christians. I'm baffled by it. But, to each his own. So yeah, he preaches against Calvinism, but he is using one of their doctrines of limited atonement, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. But yeah. And all of them teach this. Some more than others. And literally just before, maybe an hour, I found another clip of Anderson refuting his own fucking doctrine. Okay? Now, this clip, there's 2 points to make to it, but I don't want to focus on the first one. In it, he only states men. Okay? And he's not meaning mankind. He believes women can only be saved through childbearing. 1 Timothy 2:15.
Oh, I'm screwed then.
Yes. Yeah, you're really screwed, D. And for those of you that don't know, D is a Christian. Okay? We'll leave it at that.
A childless, never married Christian who basically every time, one of my pet peeves is complementarianism. Just to go off to the side for a moment, that's one of my pet peeves. And whenever somebody talks about, and Calvinists love it, by the way, they talk about how great complementarianism is. My response is, complementarianism does nothing for me, a middle-aged, single, never married, childless woman
and it's
who supports herself.
It's not a biblical doctrine. We'll have to do a show on complementarianism.
Yeah, we need to do a show on
I know I did years ago, but I have gotten some new information that I've been trying to digest. So, I'll put that in my notes. But
who's it that Matt was going to comment on? We're going to
jump to him after this. But Anderson basically in this clip refutes his own reprobate doctrine. He cites Hebrew 2:9, and Anderson focuses on the word in this verse, every. But if you listen to this clip at the 19-second mark, this is what he says. How can you, referring to a Calvinist, call yourself a Bible-believing Christian? Look at this verse, Hebrews 2:9, and say Jesus didn't die for everybody, i.e. limited atonement is what he was referring to. Jesus Christ tastes death for every, and he goes on and on and on. He just refuted his own fucking doctrine by using that verse.
Well, I'm sure he will care.
Yeah, and this is why they get wonky. But yeah, we'll jump to Fritz. So Matt, you're up. Matt?
I'm here. I was muted. I'm sorry.
What I want to know is, has Fritz retired, or does he still have a few more days left on leave of absence due to sickness or whatever?
Last I heard, he was going to retire. Now, if he has retired, I don't know, but I know that was he was in
Well,
the process
if
of
he
doing
doesn't retire, he will be fired. That's already been stated.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Although they know that they're going to face some legal challenges. That's the last I heard, and that was like yesterday.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. When I saw that sermon that he did, it was like an hour long. It was on June 2nd, actually, and he was just, oh God. Basically, saying the same thing as what you guys have been saying about,
Mhm.
Like Steven Anderson. Uh, there's multiple Baptists that are out there, like Ben the Baptist. I'm sure people have heard of him.
Yes, he will be bringing him up, hopefully.
Matt Powell.
Twerp.
It's all the same rhetoric, all the same BS. It's kill the gays, kill the homosexuals. Let the government do it, and all this stuff. And it's like, why? What is your purpose in life to do this?
Well, that's a good question because
Uh-oh.
they not just what happened.
You froze up there for a second.
Oh, yeah, I had a few power surges early.
Okay.
It might be that, but yeah, they claim Christian persecution, that we as atheists or the LGBT community, that we persecute them. But yeah, what the fuck are they doing?
You know
I think what they're doing to us is worse than what we're doing to them.
Well, and what I would point out, and what I tell them regularly when I'm arguing with them on Twitter is, and this is a very religious argument, so not one you're going to make, but Jesus didn't die. Jesus didn't live and die so that you could harass LGBTQ people. Period. End of story. He said nothing about going out and saying don't bake a cake. He didn't tell you that you needed to go to city council to oppose anti-discrimination ordinances. I mean, right. I just take it right from there. And the thing is that, I'm for myself, I mean, I count myself kind of in the plus part of LGBTQ plus, in that I'm asexual. And so, and they have a problem with that, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, of course. You, in order for you to be saved, you gotta have fucking kids. And by the way, Anderson has 10. And yes, they are quiverful. And as I said earlier, you cannot be a pastor. Use the title pastor unless you have 2 children.
And they get that from 1 Timothy, where it says, and it's, where it has plural child. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't have a lot of information on Fritz because I just learned like last week or so that he was NIFB. I should have realized it just by his fucking sermon, which I did listen to, by the way.
And, that was disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, and it's no different than any of the other creeds.
Right, and that's the thing.
About. Yeah.
When Skylar Fiction interviewed Ben the Baptist.
Oh yeah.
Last year, remember that?
Yeah, well, I remember his Matt Powell one. We had him on Beyond the Trailer Park,
right,
for that. But yeah, I didn't know about Ben the Baptist until I was doing my research for this. So yeah, but he's another fucking clown.
Right. And there was actually a video of Ben the Baptist at a church. It did like a 45 or 47 minute sermon. And basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what, speaking of Ben the Baptist, although he's older, he's probably in his 30s, but Matt Powell's only 22, 23.
Yeah, he's very young.
There's 2 other boys.
Yeah, he's younger than me.
2 other boys, and when I say boys, I mean one is 13, and I believe the other one is 17. that are Matt Powell clones. They are NIFB. Although the one, John Cragen, and yes, all of these people have YouTube channels to a degree. But John Cragen does, and he's actually does not. So I don't know where his standing is with the NAFB. He does not endorse the reprobate doctrine or killing gays. So I will give him kudos for that. But these are children. These are kids, 2 kids in their teens. And from one of my sources said there's more. But their parents are so fundamentalist that they do not allow internet.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah,
way
this
to ruin
is
your kid's life. Not
yeah. Well, what's really
Well, they did the same thing to me at FCA.
Yeah.
They cut off
that's
complete.
the thing. Like a lot of churches will have a nursery, or they separate the children from the adults. These NIFB and a lot of other churches, not just NIFB, they want the children in the congregation. So if you listen closely or if you look at any screenshots or video, you will see tiny heads. You will see toddlers. You will see newborns. You will see babies. You will see 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. I mean, and
it's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't think that's like, and they are on the as far as with children with discipline. Just think Debbie and Michael Pearl. Now, while the Duggar clan is not NIFB, they are IFB. So if you need a reference to what it's like, think 19 Kids and Counting. I think the last iteration was 21 before Josh had his fall from grace. But yeah, that what you saw or see on the Duggars. I don't know about the new iteration of the show with the 2 girls. I haven't been following it because I was like, oh fuck no. But that's what it's like, and I imagine that is what it specifically like for the Anderson kids, because he has 10 of them.
God.
I mean, they're quiverful. And quiverful is not just within Protestantism. Some of your Catholic iterations, not specifically the Catholic Church, are quiverful as well. And for those that don't know, they have as many kids as humanly possible. They let God decide. They believe in no contraception whatsoever. They do not believe in anything like that. Obviously, no abortions. Michelle Duggar, even during the course of the show, had 1 or 2 miscarriages. I know definitely 1. Though I think it was the second one almost killed her.
And they don't, it's like, no, it doesn't matter that it almost killed you. You're supposed to keep.
And
did she freeze?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
did I freeze?
Yes, you froze.
Am I back? Am I?
Yeah, you're back up.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, like, I forgot what I was gonna say. Go ahead, Dee.
What I was gonna say was, it's kind of scary to talk to those people. I had a strange discussion with Summer White Yeager, who is the daughter of James White, and
she sounds like a shot.
Yeah, she came to. I guess she lives up in Vegas, and she came down with her 4 kids from her first marriage. She got a divorce from her first husband because he was he was basically a druggie. And, I can't fault her for that because, my God, if they don't straighten up, it's better for everybody if you get out from underneath something like that. Because, hate to say it, but people who are druggies tend to have problems with money and taking stuff and, basically being not a good thing. So she got a legit in their world divorce. And she was there for her father's installation. And we had an interesting discussion on the sidewalk where she told me that if it came down to her and an unborn child, that she would die before her kid. And it's like, that is just whack. I mean, seriously? No.
It's so sad. I mean, it really is a sad way to live your life and to think about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll hit one more idiot just because this one's kind of interesting. There are more, as I said.
There's always more idiots.
Oh, there's plenty more.
Oh, they keep adding. I mean, they're up to like 30 churches now. Maybe instead of hitting the next idiot, maybe you should hit the people who got booted.
Well, I don't really have anything on them, just minor stuff. But I do want to bring up Roger Jimenez. He's from.
He's a piece of work. Boy, oh boy.
He's from Verity Baptist, clone of Anderson. But what's really, really, really bizarre, he has a family member by marriage who is LGBTQ. Figure that one out. But again, he was one that made ludicrous comments after the Paul shooting. Basically, he was like, someone asked him, "Are you sad that?" Or in a sermon, he said, "Are you sad that 50 pedophiles were killed today?" Yes, that is their term. They conflate pedophilia, homosexuality, all of that. And Jimenez goes, no, I think it's great. I think that helps society. I think Orlando, Florida is a little safer tonight. And it...
Yeah.
Oh, I remember hearing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like his Pope, he doubled down on that statement. As recently as June of the last month, 15th. In the work up to the Make America Straight conference, he defended his sermon to a news station, ABC 10. And basically he said he had no regrets. My whole point was, if people die who deserve to die, I'm sorry, I really don't think I deserve to die. We don't need to be. Well, actually, all four of us are part of that group that he wants executed.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, my whole point was, if people die who deserve to die, we don't need to be mourning them. And then he goes on. It's yeah. There's also Patrick Boyle. We already hit Grace and Fritz. We talked a little. There's some people that I have no information on, such as Rocky Randall. He's out of Iola Baptist Temple. In Kansas, Iola, Kansas. Manly Perry, he's from Old Path Baptist Church out of Adkins, Texas. Joe Major, he's Faith Baptist Church in LA or Louisiana. I knew I was going to do that. He was in a church in the Philippines run by Logan Robertson. He made some wild things. In fact, I believe he was deported, if I remember correctly. But then they have ones that are specifically seem to be geared towards YouTube. Ben the Baptist, as Matt mentioned, Matt Powell. And as I said, there's two young boys. Where are they? Oh yeah, Jonathan Guzman. He literally, I wrote, this is a fucking child. He's like maybe 13.
Oh yeah, Robert Beatty, who runs the Ken Hovind.
Mm-hmm.
He calls him Kent's boy.
Yeah, he's a big Ken, and all of them seem to be a Kent Hovind fanboy. But yeah, there's Jonathan Guzman. There's Paul Wittenberger. He's not a child. He's from Framing the Word on YouTube. Then there's another one called Standing for Truth. I wasn't able to find any information on them. I ran out of time. Yeah, so this is no longer fringe. And what's really bizarre is when I started watching Anderson, it was one church. It was just him. In 12 years, he's gone from his one church to, I've heard, as low as 22, as high as 30 in the States, plus 5 international churches. So this is not French. Yeah. And there are, as I said earlier, members, political members that are spouting this shit. Okay, Grayson Fritz is a perfect example. But go to my Facebook page, and I have a few posts that I did of others that have made these same thing. It's same claims. It's just crazy. Now, I'm going to stress, yes, I dislike these guys. I can honestly say I don't hate them. I dislike them. Okay, hate is a very nasty word. But I'm pretty sure I can speak for the rest of you, are in no way advocating violence against these guys or harassment, physical or otherwise. Okay? Mm-hmm. No punching the Nazis, please. I don't.
Darn!
I
can't punch the Nazis? Are you kidding me?
Oh, you're taking all the fun out of it now.
Yeah, I do not advocate for that. I am totally against that type of bullshit.
I'm the same way.
But
well, that's
Nazis. I'm just. You're not making
I, of course, as someone would never advocate for breaking the law, because I must make that disclaimer.
Oh, yes.
That is all I have to say.
Yes, but
other than that,
yeah. What I do believe in, and thank Mr. Atheist for starting the ball on this. I do believe in engaging these knuckfuts publicly, whether it's through protesting peacefully, civil debate, whether it's in a chat room, commenting, civil-like on their YouTube videos if they allow comments. Some do, some don't. Flagging their videos for hate. Okay, and I do include anti-Semitism in this because they are all anti-Semitic. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We'll hit it again sometime in the future. I even support what Mr. Atheist suggested in his video of influencing the algorithms for YouTube. Google if you know how to. But I do draw the line at sending emails threatening or the like to their kids or their family.
Oh, yeah, well.
Okay, now my only caveat, sort of, is Steven Anderson's wife, because she does, every now and then, not often, interject herself into this debacle. I'll leave that up to you guys. But my caveat, if she does not make a public statement, I let her go. She's a nutball. And their kids especially, except for Cragen and Shu's mom, because they have put themselves out into the public sphere, are off limits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do not harass them. Civilly, if you can, civilly talk to these people, which I really don't think is possible, but think of the audience. That's how I debate people. I don't care about who I'm debating, because I know I ain't going to change their mind. I think of who's reading these comments.
I'm all for publicly shaming them.
Yeah.
Making them, that's what I'm for.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. I know that's what you know, that's what you hold. I know I'm a bit different on this, but I'm for absolutely don't let them like sit there and have a nice little meal at Applebee's, whatever, scream at them, do whatever the fuck you need to do, because there should be no safe corner for these kind of assholes, because they will give you no safe corner.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of mixed on that. Like, if you run into Anderson in public or any of these cretins in public, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what I would do because.
Well, I don't know what I would do. I'm just saying, if you're
Yeah.
wanting to do that, I'm not going to sit here and lecture people about what.
I'm saying actively taking the initiative
Yeah.
to do something that probably isn't a good idea. But yeah, I have to put that disclaimer out there because I don't want to, but my purpose is not to rain harassment and violence on these people. It's to inform people what these people stand for.
And how it's creeping, and be aware that these messages are starting to become more mainstream. I mean, like what you said, Stephen Anderson, his whole doctrine, they have more churches now. And I've heard these arguments, being mentioned by people who are considered more mainstream or mainline Christians. So, be aware.
So
I was going to say that there's been some recent polling that indicates and it can be pretty much linked to Trump. People, even younger people, 20s, they're really feeling like they can come out of the closet with their hate, and
yes.
It's really kind of scary.
So I have a question for you three. We are about halfway through my information. The next half will probably take another 2 hours. So would you guys be game for next week?
You want to do it next Monday night, not skip to
No, we'll do it next Monday because I actually have, I forgot what I have. I have a guest plan for the 2 weeks after. I mean, not a major, another podcaster, just so we could unwind from the last, 3 weeks now? Morgan? We've hit some deep topics.
Oh, yeah.
Or do you want to wait a month and finish it up?
It's up to you.
It's up to you. Yeah.
Well, are you two available?
I'm available.
Okay, Morgan, are you available?
Yes.
Okay, so this is going to be a very abrupt ending, but I do want to put out some kudos, and you're going to have to bear with me because I have to read through 8 pages of links here to pull out names. These are fellow YouTubers. All of them are atheist or secular and bent. In fact, I think they're all atheist. Godless Engineer, Shannon Q, Genetically Modified Skeptic, Atheist Rationale, Holy Kool-Aid, Mr. Atheist, aka Mr. Punkerman, as I call him. When I heard that part of this, that whole debacle, I was like, are you fucking serious? Prophet of Zod, Non Sequitur Show, Ocean Keltoy, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, so it's Keltoi, and it's in the show notes. Telltale, he's got some really wonderful cult shit. I mean, information, anti-cult information. Yeah. Atheist Vanguard, Bionic Dance, and this final one goes out to Cirrus. The reason being, I'm hopefully through a screen share going to play a clip that he put together. It's about 30 seconds. And he's allowed me to use it as the ending in its entirety. I mean, granted, it's only 30 seconds, but this is his content. Without all of the above, I would have been lost because there was just so much. And okay, to give you an idea of the crap I have had to go through, I have links for God, Guns, Guts, and Glory. Okay. That's how bad this has gotten. So without getting a forewarning from, because all these guys really have covered the NIFB in some way, shape, or form. And so I knew ahead of time what I was getting myself into, but it was still pretty horrendous. So I thank you all, especially to Cirrus. But Morgan, where can we find you? Morgan?
Hang on. Sorry. Yeah. So I am on Instagram at Mostring, MOSTRING, and you can find me on Twitter at that same handle.
Matt, where can we find you?
Oh, under a rock somewhere.
That I highly doubt. Okay.
Oh, where can you find me at? Well, I'm on Facebook. Just look for Matt Gilmore. You'll find me.
Okay. And
Look for the
Dean.
cat.
You can find me at MMMIRELE on Twitter. And that's pretty much, my only public facing location right now.
Yep. Well, I thank all three of you. I know, Morgan, you're stuck here anyways. No. I honestly didn't know how much we would get through, but I just started writing, and it just kept coming out. So we will plan on next week. I will basically what's in the outline. If I add anything new, I'll, pretty much spot on. But one final thing before I play the Cirrus clip, and I hate doing this because this is not something I have ever done. Generally, I make anything that I write is publicly available, but the amount of information that I have 13 pages of just links to primarily video, because that's the best way to do it in this case. On this shit. If you guys would like it, you can ping me on Twitter at Dune998. You can ping me on Facebook at Beth A. Hambridge. Now, what I'm adding to this is that I'm asking for a $3 donation. I have put over 250 hours. Regretfully, I cut part of my finger off. Well, I didn't amputate anything, but I took a humongo chunk. So I've been out of work for a week. So I had the time to do it, and I get obsessed. You all know that. So if you would like a copy of not only the links, but the PDF of my notes, and it's not a transcript, it's just my thoughts. So it's quite verbose. Ping me, let me know. You can also contact either on our Facebook group page or on the fan page. Either one, I check. The fan page goes to the group page, and I do get the notification. So if you're interested, ping me. If you're not, so be it. Most of the links, not all of them, are on show notes on Havoc and Get, my blog. So I'm going to attempt to do this. I'm going to do it as a screen share because I didn't get time to fiddle with XSplit. So please let me know if you guys can hear this. Give me a second to load it up. Oh, where's screen share? There it is. Okay, can you hear that?
No. Not hearing a thing.
Okay, hold on. It's short, so I'll try it again. Okay, I got that. Screen share is not my friend all the time.
Trust me, it's not anybody's
Ah,
friend.
there we go. It would help if I hit the share button.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. Give me a second. I gotta figure this out.
We can see it, but we can't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my sound's not going through.
Yeah.
Okay, regretfully, for some reason, Voicemeeter decided to crap out, and it's not feeding my sound through from the other application. But it is in the show notes, and basically what it is a video that Cirrus put together called We Deserve to Live. It's a response to NIFB. It's about 4 minutes and 3 seconds. I highly recommend it. Share it, pass it along, and, have fun with it. Do what you think is best. But so we're going to plan on a show for. Oh, there was another button I needed to press. Oh well, I'll play it next week. We're going to do a show then next week off of our 2-week hiatus schedule with the same panel, and we're going to finish what we started. So, Dee, Matt, Morgan, thank you very much.
No problem.
I hope y'all enjoyed the show for what it's worth.
Yeah, worked out fine.
I appreciate all your inputs. And with that, I will bid you all adieu. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.